gentlemen, welcome back. Pete Coles, Rich Sutter, in the zone. Got a great special guest for you today, folks, and we got an absolutely loaded show. Baseline to baseline, this show is going to absolutely be packed into the 60 minutes that we've got today. Pete is here with us, and I just wanted to take a quick mention of what happened yesterday. We usually tape on Thursday. Today is Friday. I walked in yesterday, and Pete had the absolute guts of our entire operation out on the floor and looks up at me and goes, I'm not sure we're going to get this together in 8 minutes. And so true. I said, come on, Pete, you can do it. But we did not have any chance yesterday, and so we held our guest yesterday and brought him with you here today. But Pete, great job. Another miracle performed by Pete Coles, putting that whole thing back together. You want to give your kid a shout out?
Yeah, Brady LePage, great learning experience. He's a high school student. I hired him on, and he got to saw what happens when a computer melts down completely.
What experience. Great job, and thanks for the help, Brady. All right, let's bring him in. There he is, the Dirt King, Adam Nelson of Hoop Dirt. Welcome to In the Zone, Adam. How are you today, buddy?
I'm good, Coach Sutter. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
We go way back, folks. We go way back. So this interview is going to be fun, and it's going to be interesting and packed with a lot of stuff. As I said to Adam the other day, we're both what I consider to be Obi's boys. So we're going to start there with our commonality and just talk a little bit about Coach, how, he really saved my life, and made a huge, huge difference in my life. And we're talking about Coach Jim O'Brien, formerly of St. Bonaventure and Boston College. And Adam also had the pleasure and grace to work with Coach. And so let's start there. Let's start with Obi.
Yeah, I know it's definitely a cool bond that we have. And, I got my start really in college basketball working for Coach O'Brien at Boston College, and really taught me a lot about the game, and about how to, handle the guys, how to be with the guys, how to recruit, and really just a really, really good person. I think, definitely proud to be part of that Jim O'Brien tree, like you are, Coach Sutter.
Great human.
Absolutely. And I think one of the coolest things for me is kind of years down the road as I kind of was moving along in my career. I was the head coach at Suffolk. And, after Coach O'Brien left Ohio State, bounced around a little bit, he became the head coach at Emerson for a couple of years. And we got to play against each other a few times.
Yeah, we did too.
Last time, yeah, and it's a pretty cool experience, right? And he kicked our butt a little bit the first 2 times, but we got him that last time. But it was just a very cool experience, and really, when you get to play and coach against one of your mentors, it really is cool.
No doubt. That happened to me once, and I absolutely hated it. Hated every minute of it. It wasn't good for me. I don't like coaching against people that I like, So let's talk about Suffolk. Adam and I competed against each other. Adam rose up in the D3 ranks, and by my estimation, a very, very good sideline boss, very, very good X's and O technician. Talk about your time at Suffolk a little bit, Coach.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and it was fun coaching against you. I don't think we ever beat you, Coach Sutter. I think you got us every time we played you.
I don't remember it well, but
yeah, I remember it. No, you know what? I had a great experience at Suffolk. I spent 10 years as the head coach at Suffolk, and it was a good experience. Previous to Suffolk, I had been a Division I assistant. I was at Holy Cross. I was at Northeastern, a couple other spots, and I enjoyed my time there. Suffolk's a tough place, though. If you've seen it, the gym is 6 stories underground. It holds about 30 people, and it's a tough place to, it's a tough place. But I did enjoy my time. I enjoyed my time at the Division III level. Really, really great kids that we had.
Division III is difficult to recruit to, period. And then when you add in some of the extras that are there, it really does level out, and it really does make a difference. And I think down here there's just so many really good coaches. Some of us just have more resources than others, and that's how it gets bifurcated, Some really, really great coaches down on the levels here, and it's like the top levels of D1. There's levels to all of this stuff, and that's a lot of how I see it get broken up. But again, I did always enjoy our time. But you moved from Suffolk and now have turned something. Obi and the guys used to call it scuttlebutt, right? The carousel that's about to turn in March, we cover it pretty well on the show as well. So much interest in it, so many people that you can talk to that have all these different takes on it. But then you turned it into something a little bit different. You turned it into something commercial and something that, you're now have, in my estimation, risen through the ranks of this whole college, what I refer to as 100 million bottles washed up on the shore. It's the old Police song. Everybody's out there with a podcast and everybody's got something going. But your stuff resonates. Your stuff resonates, and man, I don't know how you do it, but you're unbelievable, man. The stuff that comes up on your site is just like timely. It's unbelievable, and I don't know how you do it. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, well, no, first of all, I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, so Hoop Dirt kind of started, like you said, like the scuttlebutt, right? And right, coaches like to talk. And I have a former assistant of mine who played for me, who was my assistant at Suffolk, and he knew, like, that was back in the old days, like 2008, 2009, when we just talked on the phone all the time, And I remember one day he said, like, Coach, you're always talking to guys on the phone. You know what's going on. What if we put this on the internet? And I was like, well, we kind of thought about it, and at the time my brother-in-law was a web developer. We talked to him about it, and lo and behold, September of 2009, we started with this, like, one-page little blog where I just kind of started putting stuff up I hear, and it's really grown. And to be honest, I think it's grown. Now, with social media, anybody can tweet whatever they want. And there's a lot of guys that just tweet random stuff. But I think I've been in this business my whole life. I came up in college basketball. I love this business. It's all I know. So I take it very seriously, and the stuff I say is not, we don't just throw stuff out there and hope it sticks. The stuff that I'll say is legitimate stuff. And also, and I think why we have such a good following, coaches, I think, know that I'm honest and I'm not trying to jam them up. There's a lot of stuff that we don't put out there because I don't want to jam somebody up.
Sure.
And that's not why we do it. And again, there's a lot of these guys that'll tweet stuff and want to be first to tweet stuff. And I think sometimes people misunderstand a little bit what Hoop Dirt is. We want to get really good information out there for coaches, who are looking to move in the business. Whether I'm first or last, I don't care. I just want to make sure it's correct. I want to make sure the information's right. I want to make sure it's meaningful. I want to make sure that we can help coaches. It's great to break a story. It is fun. I definitely, I won't lie to you. I like that. But I'd rather be right and a little bit behind than wrong. And also, a lot of the blogs that I write, a lot of the stuff that I do, I won't necessarily offer, opinion too much. I'll present the facts, and let coaches chase that.
The veracity of what you're doing is evident. That's why people are interested in it, because they can trust it. In so much of today, as we talk about, it's difficult to find people that you can trust. But over the course of time, you've been absolutely, and I think your patience that you're speaking to is, has been of value, because you have been spot on. You really have been patient and wait when you have the facts. And I think you've done a great job of not personalizing it. Because in this, people are losing their jobs, and families got to move, and kids are picking new schools, and there's a lot in there, that people don't really get. In the carousel, they just want to hear who's getting hit and who's taking his place, and the narratives a lot of times get washed away. And I wanted to commend you really for staying true to the as a coach. I think you bring that with you into this, and I think that matters a great deal. Let's talk about this coming year in terms of numbers. I know 2 years ago, I think you prognosticated for 60, and we got 60, and last year I think you were a little bit under that number. Do you have a number now?
So I don't have it yet. We're working on it, but it's gonna be a higher number than it's been. My guess, honestly, the the amount of coaching changes at the Division I level will be somewhere between 65 to 68.
Wow.
It's the whole landscape at that level has changed so much. With NIL and basically free agency now, there's a lot more pressure on coaches to win, like, right away. You don't have that 3, 4, 5 year window where, okay, well, you're getting rid of the old guys, you're bringing your guys in. You don't have that. Like, you've got to get there and you've got to win, like, right away. So I think we're going to see a lot more guys who have maybe been on the job for just 2 or 3 years, probably lose their job, unfortunately. Um, and again, I think it's just, it's a different world. It's a different world at that level. So I do think we're going to see a lot more changes this year than we have in the last few.
What do you attribute to the fact that in our business of 362 jobs, that almost 50 are changing hands every single year?
It's, especially now with all the money involved, like you have to win. You have to win. It's not enough to be a good guy and do stuff in the community and graduate your players. And, you have to win. And that's the bottom line. And especially now with all this NIL stuff, you have to make sure you have the funds to succeed. So you have to build your program the right way. You'll see it. And I think you're going to see it a lot in this cycle. I think two things you're going to see a lot of. You're going to see a lot of NBA guys get hired to college jobs. And
Wow.
you're going to see a lot of guys bringing in, legit general managers. Like Duke has bought into it. Duke has a general manager. North Carolina has not, but they will. And I think you're going to see a lot of these guys, and especially, with some of these high major openings right now, you're going to get some guys that maybe NBA guys getting hired, but are also bringing in general managers with them. And I think that's what you have to do now.
With the plate tectonic shifting as it is, do you think that could get, like, for example, Duke went really on the cutting edge and brought the general manager in, I want to say more than 2 years ago. And now that Carolina hasn't done that, is that showing in the performance of the team? And do you calibrate that into the formula when you're deciding whether to keep a coach or not? How fast were we to the NIL whole program, and did that hurt our coach or did it help and buttress our coach?
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think, to be honest, I think that does play a role in it. And I think, ADs and the people making the decisions will look at that. We'll look at, did we buy into this? And again, you've seen a lot of attrition, Jim Larinaga at Miami, Jim Boeheim, Roy Williams, all these guys over the last few years who have gotten out because they don't, it's a lot, right? It's a lot for a guy who's been a lifer to adjust to something new. And I think
Sure.
if you don't buy in, you're not going to be successful. I don't think you can fight this. Unfortunately, I do not believe you can fight this and be successful. So I do think that's going to be a big part of ADs and again, whoever the decision makers are, looking at current coaches and figure out, like, A, have they bought in, and B, have they bought in the right way? Like you have to be all in. I mean, I said, Patino said the other day, like, they're not even looking at high school kids.
Right.
They lose 3 good guys this year from the roster. They're not even looking at them. So they're going to hit that transfer portal, free agency, and they're going to pay guys. I mean, they have the kid that was at Seton Hall last year who's a stud. Seton Hall couldn't afford him. So, but that's because Patino's made that, decision that's the game, and it's proven. I mean, St. John's is nasty. I mean, I believe they're going to make a really good run in this tournament because he's gone and built himself a really good roster because you can do that now legally. So I think that's
the Kadari Richmond is the gentleman that Coach is talking about, and went from Seton Hall to St. John's, and Coach Patino has alluded to that a little bit in the past about, he'd be still at Seton Hall if Seton Hall had the same bag that St. John's has. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about as well, too, in some of these coaching decisions as you move forward. Is that going to be part of your consideration? How well administratively were you ready for everything? And if you weren't, then maybe a little bit more time, is warranted for the coach in order to get up to a level playing field of most of what everybody else in the league has. So let's take us through, again, I don't want to get into hot seat, all this other stuff, because I don't really find that whole appropriate. And it'll move fast enough where you can go back and talk about this stuff after it happens without trying to conjecture about people losing their jobs. But right now, we have 4 Power 5 jobs open. Miami, Florida State, Virginia, and what's the other one? There's 3 in Indiana.
Yep.
Indiana. Okay. So if you could quickly rank those 4 jobs for me and get into a little bit of pros and cons about each job, because I think this is where some education for people could really help. As you say, we're going to get this coach. We're going to get that coach. Indiana's talking about some names, that I think are just, Fordham used to talk about Bobby Cremens, and then they'd wind up hiring somebody else, So I think that's a little bit of the problem here, is that everybody's looking for that big press conference hire, when in actuality, coaches are looking at this now saying, I don't have what I need there to be successful, or I do have what I need there to be successful, and that's kind of gauging interest. So see if you can take us through those four. What's the best job there?
It's a great question. And first of all, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna back up 30 seconds. Like,
Go ahead.
I appreciate about like the hot seat. Like that's the one thing like you'll never see on Hoop Dirt. You'll never see
Right.
me talk about. Like we will never talk about a hot seat. And like you said, I've been through it. I've been parts of staffs that were fired twice. So we never want to put that out there. Like who's on the hot seat? Guys, no. You can Google someone random saying it, but so we'll never say that. But like stuff like this, jobs that are already open, we'll talk about all day. This is great.
Right. No, 100%.
So I think. To me, the best open job right now is Miami, for a lot of reasons. I think the NIL money running through there is crazy. So I think you can go get a lot of guys. I also think that it's Miami. It's an attractive destination for players. I also think, Miami, they have a lot of pro connections. And I think this could be one of those jobs. First of all, before we talk about this, with all these jobs except for Virginia, you're going to hear Will Wade's name come up. Like I think Will Wade is ready to get back to that level. What he was doing at LSU is now legal. He's won at McNeese State, so Will Wade's going to be involved in all these jobs. At Miami, Richard Pitino I think is going to be involved. But then you're going to have a ton of NBA guys, so I think that's a really attractive job. And again, as we talk about like somewhere like Miami, if you were to hire like an NBA assistant who's got that pro experience, who can bring in a general manager, you're running it like an NBA team, and that's what guys want at that level. Go to Miami, get paid, and have a chance to play in the NBA. So that's why I think Miami's a really, really attractive spot.
Okay, you and I are 100% copacetic on that one. I think Miami's the best of the four too. Go ahead.
So well, let me go last. Let me out of those four, the last one, the worst one I think is Florida State. I think Florida State's facilities are aging. I think, and all of these are quote unquote football schools, but Florida State is really a football school. What Leonard Hamilton has done there over the last 22 years has been amazing. He did have a little snafu with an NIL deal last year, which I think is going to come, hurt the program a little bit. But again, it's a big time school. I think that's out of those four, that's the bottom. But again, that'll be like a Will Wade type. I mean, to be honest, I think Florida State, would be great to hire Sam Cassell, who's a Celtics assistant, played at Florida State. Again, NBA guy, and that's what, you'll develop NBA players.
I've heard that name. Yeah, I've heard that name.
And there's also another NBA assistant, Luke Laux, an assistant with the Kings, who played at Florida State as well, who's been trying to get involved with this. So again, that's another job that, could be attractive to an NBA assistant. And again, not a terrible thing. I mean, Leonard Hamilton had been there 22 years, but he was also an NBA head coach, kind of got it done there. So, but again, as far as facilities and, really, really being a football school, I think that's number four. So between number 2 and 3, they're both interesting between Indiana and Virginia, right? So I think Indiana's a strange place where, this mystique about being the Indiana Hoosiers, and it's this great program, right? So Indiana last played in the national championship game in 2002, right? So that's 23 years ago. Since then, they've been to 10 NCAA tournaments. That's not a lot, three Sweet 16s in that time. So I think there's a little, they haven't been the great program over the last 20 plus years that I think people think they have been. That being said, they've done some really unique things with their NIL. Like they were one of the first ones to launch this NIL directory, and you could actually go see it. So I think they've committed to paying. But I just think, it's not the program that it was 20 plus years ago or during the Bobby Knight era in the 80s, So I
agree 100%. They're in the past. They live in the past.
They do. So that's why I think it's interesting. I don't know, I think that the NIL stuff will help them. And it's really interesting. I think, someone like, Dusty May, who's an Indiana alum, who did a great job at Florida Atlantic, took the Michigan job last year. I think this is just poor timing for him. I don't think he's going to take the Indiana job like everybody wants him to or thinks he should. So I think it's going to be an interesting list with, a bunch of guys who are, kind of lower tier, high major coaches right now. I don't know that it's going to be like a splash home run, win the press conference hire. So that's an interesting one. But again, so they're interesting. And Virginia's interesting too, because I think what Tony Bennett did there was amazing. won a national championship in 2019. But what Virginia and Tony Bennett, what they were known for was their style of play. You
Right.
know, they would grind it out, defend you, play low scoring games, and he won a national championship. So it's really hard to take a job like that and replace someone like that and now bring your style to it. And I do
Sure.
think that's a consideration for some guys. Like if you're in the mix for one of these high major jobs, like you're going to be in the mix for others. So it doesn't mean like you have to jump at this Virginia job. And I think some guys that's definitely a consideration where like it's really hard to replace someone who had a lot of success. It's a lot easier. Listen, if you replace a guy who won 5 games and you go win 10, you're a hero in your first year. But if you replace a guy like Tony Bennett and you win 10 games your first year, you're in trouble. So, I don't know. I mean, it could be a job for someone like a Shaka Smart who wants to maybe move into a better league again, and maybe a Ryan Odom from VCU. Who knows? But I think that's a tough job. So I think ranking those four, you got Miami at the top, Florida State at the bottom, and then kind of depending, that Virginia, Indiana, almost tied for 2 and 3, depending on what you want to get out of it.
If you look at Kelsey, May, Byington, and even Holtzman at DePaul, although the numbers really haven't shown, their program's in much better spot than it has been. That it can happen in 1 year. It can get turned around in 1 year now with a good budget and with everything else. And I think Indiana, if you look at their current roster, they're not getting beat to the dollar often. They've been able to compete in the NIL market. What do you think is the future of the NIL?
That's a great question. I mean, honestly, and I mean, this stuff literally changes, day by day, week by week. There's always something new coming in. Whether it gets regulated more, whether you get some kind of salary cap, I don't know. But I think something has to change. I don't think this is sustainable at this level. And like I said, I think especially with this cycle, with NIL really cranked up now, with people starting to understand it more, like you're going to get some guys that get jobs and just bring a lot of money with them and
Sure.
are able to literally buy teams and get going right away.
Sure. Rick Pitino could move from St. John's tomorrow. The bag's going with him.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Absolutely. And you know what? Like if he wanted to go take the Miami job, which he's not, but he could go down there and bring a ton of money with him, have a ton of money flowing there. It's Miami. I mean, you can win a national championship there in a year.
Yeah.
But that's why, so you say the future of NIL, I mean, something's going to change, and whether it is like, it's got, some type of salary cap, there's got to be some regulation on it. I mean, I get it. You got to, paying guys who are bringing in a lot of money for your university, understandable. But it is the Wild West right now with literally zero regulation. I mean, there's no, they can say there is, but there's not.
It's exactly how we refer to it on our show. It's a Wild West show. They just threw it in. It was poorly constructed, poorly conceived, and now poorly executed as well, in my opinion. I've always been in favor of paying the players, but I think they've kind of just thrown this thing and completely impacted what the spirit of the whole thing was, and they've ruined that a little bit. They've taken away the amateurism for sure, and now kind of replaced it. And what's really creates a little bit of unhappiness with me is, and now that we're paying the players, the product hasn't gotten any better. Product hasn't gotten any better. I watch the games now, the effort's down, hustle's down. There's just a lot of things now. Once you take away that from an athlete, sometimes you take away that hunger by being highly paid, it becomes a different scenario. And now you have almost every single one of the gentlemen in a SEC locker room making more money than the assistant coaches. That makes it difficult for them to be approachable, coachable, and things like that. And so when you see this Coach Dunphy now, this mass exodus of coaches, you kind of got to own it a little bit, that you're the guys who threw the cherry bomb into the room and now everybody's running out because it's just too hot. We're going to let you go soon, Adam, but give me a little bit of your thoughts on the portal and how that ties all of this together.
It does. The portal is crazy. Like I said earlier, it's like free agency. I mean, it's nuts, right? Like in the old days, you would transfer, you'd sit out a year, whatever. Now, if you're unhappy with literally anything, you put your name into the portal and go. I mean, it's again, you should have the choice to where you want to play. I get it, you know. But I think it's the portal combined with the money that has made, you know, free agency in college basketball what it is. You know, you're not happy somewhere, you're going, and it's hard as a coach. So I talk to, you know, my life now is I talk to, you know, coaches all day, every day, you know, from the high major guys to the low major to everybody. But what a lot of the high major guys say is that they spend a lot of time recruiting their current guys,
Right.
just making sure they're happy, you know, making sure they're staying. And it's crazy. It's a whole different world. I mean, you're worried every day that guys tell me they log in and they want to see who's in that portal. And is it one of their guys? And they, you know, it is a totally, totally different world. Like you said, you know, you got guys making more than assistant coaches and you're trying to keep them happy. And you know what? If they're not, they're going. So it's a lot to put a lot of, you know, effort into developing someone and having them go.
Here's what comes back to it also. I remember I'd be playing golf with Obi, and he would talk about his move from Boston College to Ohio State and what that meant as far as his time demands, all of the extra stuff that Ohio State had him doing. Now you're throwing in portal responsibilities, you're throwing in NIL responsibilities, because these coaches now have to go out and raise money. Now they have to go out and talk and meet with people and go out and do all of that stuff. So that's a significant dynamic shift for some of these coaches, that instead of being X's and O guys and building relationships and programs and graduating players, I mean, almost every school record in the Power Five is going to be safe now. Almost every school record is going to be good because there'll be nobody around long enough to break them. You know, it's incredible. Adam.
Yeah, well, no, real quick, not to cut you off, but no, it's a great point.
No.
And it is too. So we talk about like these programs and you want to win and their fan bases want to see them win. But now gone are the days where like you've seen a guy develop, you know, as a freshman. Look at BC in the old days. Like, you know, you saw Billy Curley come through the program. He was a 4-year guy. You know, like you don't have that anymore. You're not going to have that connection with like these 4-year guys. They come back to campus 20 years later and be heroes because they were these 4-year players, you know. So it's a different world. And in a lot of ways, it really is too bad because, you know, that was what was really cool about college basketball. Like you spent you grew up there playing basketball. And the fans got to know you and your school got to know you. So it's too bad that's gone.
There's another layer of this also for me as you peel this onion, is there's going to be a new level of scrutiny for coaches based upon their expenditures. You know, you spent $1.5 million on this guy, and they got this guy for $600,000. So on the staffs of these people that they put together, I think evaluation is going to be really, really important coming up, is that they pick the right guys and that they're spending their money wisely and they're getting some return on investment. I think that's going to be a new day. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's 100%. I think you are spot on with that. Like, you know, I mean, everyone's going to know how much everyone's getting paid. And yeah, you can't, if you overpay and you fail, you're going to be in trouble. And you know what's interesting about all this too? Did you see the other day, Dennis Gates from Missouri got on the mic and told the fans not to storm the court after the Kansas game because that's a $250,000 fine. And he said afterwards, "Oh, they need that $250 for the NIL money." You know, so it is interesting. I mean, you know, it's a dollars and cents business now. It's crazy. So yeah, I mean, guys are going to get scrutinized on how much they're paying guys. They need the money for it. It is a whole new world, Coach Sutter. It really is.
Crazy. Adam, thank you for being with us today. We're going to let you roll, but folks, you just got a really, really good insight right there from a guy who is what I consider an absolute expert in the field, and a guy who also brought a coaching background with him into it, and I think that's why his word is as valued as it is. Adam, thank you so much. The Dirt King, ladies and gentlemen, in the zone today. Have a great one.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
You're the best. You're the best.
Be good.
Great interview.
Thank you, Pete. That kid knows it. That kid knows it, man. He's got it. All right, let's roll to Pete's Corner.
All right.
We're going to go with Pete's 3 shots, and we're going to take them quickly today because we got a power 30 in the NBA.
All right, I'm going to hit you hard right off the bat.
Go.
What are the ripple effects of the Wembanyama injury?
Oof. I was gonna bring that up in the power 30.
I saw that. I'm looking around, digging around, going
deep vein thrombosis.
That's
so
that's
we're talking about
yeah.
we're talking about Coumadin. We're talking about some drugs that he's going to be on for a quite significant amount of time. I really took a little bit of, that one kind of caught me by surprise and really hurt. That could be something significant. You really have to worry about the individual's overall health in this thing, and that's Serious, folks. That's not a broken pinky. That's some serious stuff.
That's an
Shutting him
instant-
down for the year is the right move by the Spurs, and we wish him and everybody in that circle nothing but good news on that. But I applaud the Spurs for shutting him down because, man, that's scary. That's
Now that
scary.
opens up Defensive Player of the Year, does it not?
It will. It will. He won't have enough.
They won't have enough games to qualify for it because they put in all these new rules about you have to play this many games to qualify for MVP and this, that, and the other thing.
And they put that rule in for a bunch of guys that were faking injuries.
Correct.
This guy's legitimately hurt. I'd like to see a waiver on that maybe. He's definitely the DPOY in my mind.
All right.
Great question, though, Pete, and really current. That just happened.
Yeah. I kind of scour around, take a look around, and look for things going on. My next question is, how is an NBA player able to buy out their contract? I read Ben Simmons bought out his contract to go to L.A.
So this is one of the things that I
Like,
wanted.
I thought that it could only they could only trade.
Yeah. So there is some kind of clause where the players can do that. What happens with the NBA teams is that, and this is one of the things that I wanted to talk about a little bit later in the show, but I'll bring up some of it now. When an NBA team signs a player, it's almost like, you know, you're taking this thing on for like a long time. So even if you cut the player, you still have to eat the cap money. Even if you get rid of a player, or even when you trade them, sometimes you need to eat some of the cap money, and it's just this crazy conglomeration of things. But what there is this thing of, if you compensate the present team with the money that they would be losing in that exchange, then you can get out of your own contract. I'm pretty sure that's what we're talking about here.
Wow.
And Ben Simmons, you know, you might see this happen more and more.
So where's the loyalty to a team? Right?
This is the NBA, Pete. The only loyalty is to Uncle Sam's dollar picture on the front of the paper. That's all that matters. There is zero loyalty to the team. Zero.
All right.
Another good one.
Will the NIL ever come to Division II and Division III?
Yes, eventually. I think it will. There's a lot of schools in Division III with a lot of money. And so how would you condition it that you pay the top levels but you don't pay the bottom levels? The question that I would have is, how do they generate the level of revenue? They're not getting TV contracts. They're not getting, 80,000 football seats sold out every week. So I don't know how they would generate that revenue, but nothing really could stop them from starting in lane 2, where they could go to their alums, or possibly even into, this is where it's going to get real dicey. If these schools can jump into their endowment now, which a lot of them are going to do, they're going to jump into their endowment money to start paying some of the old bills, to start paying some of the new bills. That would really favor the Ivies if the Ivies ever got into this, because they have more money than anybody. And so I think, yes, it will happen eventually. What it does, though, is it also takes coaches off the hook. Like last number of years ago, you had a coach, Rick Majerus, big old guy, coached the Utah team for years, and he had this great player, Greg Van Horn, on his team. Greg Van Horn's father dies, okay? Majerus has to take him as the coach to the airport so he can fly home, going to go home for the service during the season. He's going to come back, boom, but the coach takes him to the airport. Flight gets delayed. Coach says, come on, let's go have a slice of pizza. The kid's dad just died. The coach buys him a slice of pizza, and the NCAA gets involved. Okay, they sanction the coach. I swear to you. They sanction Rick Majerus for the slice of pizza. Most likely had Van Horn pay the $2.50 back for the slice of pizza. This is how nickel and dime they used to be. That's why they're getting punched in the face right now, because they used to do stuff like that. Good question, though. Good question. I think eventually, yeah.
Craziness.
Nuts.
Craziness.
Okay?
That's 3.
Let's go to the Power 30, Pete. We're going to slide and glide right through this. OKC, folks. We're at the All-Star break, and you have more, you have 54 games by some 55. It's not an even breakdown, but you are at the All-Star break. We're going to give it to you 1 through 30. OKC Thunder, Cleveland Cavaliers, Boston Celtics, and Memphis Grizzlies take up your first 4. Okay, the Memphis Grizzlies are an absolute shocker to be in that 4, and so are the Cleveland Cavaliers. If you told me OKC and the Celtics would be there, I would have nodded and agreed with you. But to have those others in there is really, really a surprise and a tribute to their teams and their coaches for having that great year. New York Knicks, Denver Nuggets, the Rockets, and the Lakers make it up next. The Lakers bombed one out in Utah the other night. And I'm going to say this. There's so much been talked about this trade. All right? I'm going to tell you something that I picked up on when this trade goes out. Okay? Take it to the Dalton Connect and Mitchell trade. All right? Where it got shuttled, right? So what happened was it looked like the Lakers were getting schooled in the trade because this guy was hurt. So the NBA jumps in and says, no, you can't send a hurt player to the Lakers. No way. But when the Lakers try to send their hurt player over to the Mavericks, that was no problem because they were dumping the hurt player. So the NBA jumps in front of the Lakers, my opinion, at all costs, every chance they can. They want the Lakers to be relevant. They want the Lakers to be up in the top of the whole Western Conference, and they'd love to have them represented in the finals. Here's my take on it. You just added the same exact guy to the guy you got. LeBron James and Luka Doncic, good scorers, good passers, they'll rebound for you. Neither one of them has been in a defensive stance in years. They are the same person, a same player almost. Little bit of difference here, little bit of difference there. But when you metric it all out, I mean, they're like, identical players. So that's why it's not going to work. Eventually, I think it's going to break. But if the league keeps jumping in front of them, who knows? Clippers, Pacers, Wolves, and Bucks. All right? No surprises here. Maybe the Clippers a little bit higher than everybody thought them. But the Bucks down there is a little bit of a problem. And you're also starting to hear some music in the background about Giannis wanting out of Milwaukee. They just have not surrounded him with the appropriate weapons or arsenal to be a competitive team. They brought in Doc Rivers to try and placate and roll things over, but it's not working. And you're going to start to hear Giannis and any other great player that's really mired in one of those situations that doesn't look like it's going to be competitive, going to get them in the playoffs or get them into the finals. That's when you're going to see some of this moving around. That's why you've had all these super teams in the NBA as well, too. That's part of it, too, as you consider who is the greatest player of all time. Some of these guys have been able to put their own teams together. Here's my guys, the Detroit Pistons, Pete, in the 14th spot. Did not make the playoffs last year. One of the best turnarounds in all of NBA history is happening right here with the Detroit Pistons. Look at them. Unbelievable. You got to love it. The Mavericks are in there. The Kings and the Warriors. Warriors, a little bit of a disappointment. Picked up Jimmy Butler. Let's see. Got Steph Curry and you got Jimmy Butler over there. That's two very, very alpha dogs in the same lineup. Let's see what happens. I think that they're missing some stuff up front with this trade, too. They lost a little bit. Let's go through the rest of it, Pete. The Magic, the Suns, the Hawks, and the Heat. All right, the Heat, 25 and 28. That was with Butler. Now, he was out for a really long time. They suspended him, kept him out of the lineup. But if you have a guy that's being a distraction like that and you're under 500, that's a problem. Okay, we go to the Spurs. There it is, Pete. You alluded to it in your Pete's Corner question. That's serious stuff. And what does that do to the Spurs if this young man doesn't continue? What does this do to the franchise? What does this do to everything that they've put into this? And also, what does this do with the young man moving forward? I think they'll be all right with it. Eventually they'll be able to get it under control maybe and do okay with it, and he'll return. But I don't know that this is career-threatening, but it's pretty serious. Trailblazers, the Bulls, 76ers, and the Nets. No issues there except for the 76ers. And this is what I'm going to talk about a little bit later in the show. They should be able to get rid of Embiid now and not have to bear any consequence. Just get rid of him. They should be able to get rid of Paul George right now with any consequence. But if they get rid of those guys, you're talking about a 50 and a 40, 50 and a $50 million player that's going to stay on the books for some time. And so this is why you can't move them. This is why these NBA franchises or the NBA is currently as bifurcated as it is between the haves and the have-nots. Raptors, Hornets, Jazz, Pelicans, and Wizards. Just terrible. terrible. But the 76ers are the biggest disappointment of all of that. Them being in a 24 spot out of a 30 cohort in the NBA when everybody thought they were going to be top 10 is an absolute disaster. Washington Wizards 9-45.
I think the president should sign an executive order calling them the Washington Generals.
Phew. That would be nice. That would be nice because that's who they're playing like a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, Pete, we got Tatum moving on up. You got the all-time Celtics list. Number one on the Celtics list, number one, Hondo, Johnny Havlicek. 26,395 points as a Celtic. Unbelievable career. I loved him growing up as a player. Paul Pierce is second. Larry Bird is third. Robert Parrish fourth. Kevin McHale fifth. Bob Cousy sixth. Sam Jones, Russell, and now Tatum goes into the 9 hole. Just to give you an idea, Tatum, after a bunch of years, I want to say he came in 16, maybe?
Yeah.
So he's
sounds about
almost
right.
10 years in the league. He's got 13,193 points. He is 13,202 behind Hondo. Does he catch him, Pete?
Depends on how long he plays.
It's going to take at least another 10.
Yep.
And he's going to have to stay in a Celtic uniform that entire time.
That's not likely to happen.
That's the big one. Cowens, JoJo White, Bill Sharman, an old name there, Tommy Heinsohn, Antoine Walker, and Jaylen Brown, 15,302 points in the trail. Okay, here we go, Pete. It's WTF are we doing? What the F are we doing, Pete? Tom Brady, $37.5 million. Behind the microphone.
I know.
He stinks. Chuckwagon Barkley, $21 million. Stephen A. Smith, $20 million. Shaq, $15 million. Oof. We're doing something wrong, Pete.
Jeez, Romo's in the wrong business.
Almost there. Keep ticking. All right. This is a great one. These are guys who get paid but always have All-Star Weekend off. Tobias Harris, $273 million, never in an All-Star game. C.J. McCollum, $248 million, full paid weekend off at All-Star break. Harrison Barnes, $204. Nicholas Batum, $203. Danilo Gallinari, $202. Eric Gordon, I was surprised he was never an All-Star, $183. Rudy Gay of UConn history, never made it in. Okay, who's hot? Who's not? NBA just starts back up again really tonight in earnest after the All-Star break. They had one game, Wednesday game, one game, and that was the game the Lakers dumped. But you got the Cavaliers 1-4, Celtics are 3. The Nuggets are the hottest team in the NBA right now, folks. They've won 8 games in a row. Clippers have won 3. Pistons have won 4. And the Nets, everybody in Brooklyn, the Nets have won 3. Who's not hot, Pete? The Suns. The Suns are fading. The Suns are receding, L3. The Heat, the Butler did it, Pete, L4. The Bulls, L4. 76ers lost 5 in a row. And the Wizards, they always seem to be on a losing streak, L4. Okay? OPP, yeah, you know me, opposing players' points per game. The Bulls are giving up 120 a game. Wow. The Wizards, 122. Look on the other side of the fence, OKC 104 and Orlando 105. Who's leading the NBA in points per game, Pete? Memphis Grizzlies. That's why they're one of the tops, 123 points a game for them. Cleveland 122. Denver 121. You see this is the cream of the crop here. The Knicks and the Celtics. I was surprised to see the Celtics that low. I thought they'd be one of the top.
Do you remember when games were rare over 100 points?
Oof. And now it's if they're not over 100, something's rare about that. It's the other way around, completely flipped on its head, 100%, Pete. Now you got, this is where we call differential, and the differential matters. OKC, when you talk about their OPP and then you talk about their points per game, you're talking about a differential. They're plus 12.9. Cleveland, plus 10.8. Celtics, plus 9.1. 1, 2, 3 down the line. That differential matters. Grizzlies, plus 7.5. And the Knicks, plus 5.9. Let's go to the other side, the negative. The Wizards, 13.4. Worst team in the NBA, and it shows. Pelicans, 8.8. The Jazz, 7.1. The Nets, 6.0. And the Raptors, 5.9. Pete, The NBA All-Star Game was a fiasco. Absolute fiasco. First team to 40 points and the first fans to the restroom. Unbelievable. Adam Silver is Elliot Ness. He's untouchable. He's got $50 million. They got millions they'd have to pay to get rid of him. But I would take every single person that's around him, take them outside, take them to Golden State, wherever they went, and assign them to new jobs. Get them out. You got to minimize the non-basketball voices in the room if you want something good to happen. Here's the NBA's 12-step program, Pete. We don't have 12 steps for them right now, but we got a few they can make. All right? Has the NBA hit rock bottom, Pete?
No.
That's the question.
I don't think so.
With all that money, nobody even knows how bad they are up there. $50 million for Jaylen Brown, $40 million for this guy, $60 million for this guy, and he doesn't play back-to-backs. Okay, so here's what I think happens, okay? You got 103 balls in a game. The OPP is over 120 points per game with two of your teams. Blatant disregard for defense. And the All-Star Game dunk contest, your dunk contest winner 2 years in a row doesn't play in the NBA.
He won again.
Action steps immediately. Immediately. You can have it for free, Adam Silver. I'm giving this to you for free. It has to happen if you'd like to save that game. That means so much to all of us. See, I don't think it means that much to them, the guys up top there. They don't care about basketball. They just care about corporate return on investment, bottom line. They don't really care about basketball because if they did, you wouldn't have this that they have. Number one, and this is going to be my first one, and it's a strong one. Eliminate the three-point line in NBA basketball. It has now become an easy pass. It has now become a toll that everybody sits at and figures they have to pay. It's impacted the game in ways that people do not even understand as far as players running the floor, teams hustling up and down, moving into your sets with fluidity and pace. All of that is affected when you stop and stand at the line. And that's exactly what's happening. 100 threes in an NBA game. Are you freaking kidding me?
I got a question for you. Well, maybe I'll save it for next week.
Okay.
I got a question. So I'll ask you next week, and that'll be one of my Pete's three. It just popped into my head.
Run it into the corner if you want.
Yep.
Okay, go to a 30-second clock, like college basketball. Make them consistent. Go to a 30-second clock. 24 seconds isn't enough. They rush the ball down, take the first worst shot they can find, and then call it speed and pace and all that other stuff. They're shooting the ball within 9 seconds in an NBA game on average now. That's on average. That means a lot of them go up long before 9. Some of them last after 9, but it's unbelievably just disorienting to even watch right now. Take out all, and I'm going to say it again, all illegal defense rules. Take out every single illegal defense rule that you can find.
Yep.
Hand check all of them. Take it out and get rid of them.
Yep.
Stop the hiring incest. Stop hiring only people who've been in the NBA and circle around these jobs one after the next after the next. Show some vibrant, dynamic talent on your sidelines. You just keep pulling out the same old retread. The tire blows out, and you grab somebody else right behind him who's a retread, and everybody sits waiting for the tire to blow again. Eliminate the draft lottery. Immediately eliminate the draft lottery. By definition, the best players are going to the worst programs. Not healthy for the NBA. Make it a 30-team lottery. Everybody gets to draft, regardless of record. Have it straight. Anybody who goes in gets to get the number one pick. It'll be exciting for the fans as well. Okay? And eliminate the salary cap. Eliminate the salary cap. Get rid of it. Like you're seeing, we told you this would happen. Eventually, somebody's pocketbook gets squeezed. And the guy who owns the Celtics, his pocketbook got squeezed with Jaylen Brown for $50 million. Tatum coming up on it. And so now I wouldn't be surprised. I was going to say this to Adam, but I would not be surprised. And I'm going to throw this out to all of our zoners to see Brad Stevens take the Indiana job. Because it seems like they might have worn out their welcome up there in Boston a little bit by overspending all of this guy's dough. And right now he's trying to sell the team because of this. So I think that's going to be a problem as well. But eliminate the salary cap. If they want to spend wild, let them spend as much as they want. It'll make return on investment better. They'll pick more wisely with their dollars because now you got this cap stuff and this guy stays on the cap and this guy goes off the cap, and you need lawyers to handle all this stuff instead of basketball people. Eliminate the salary cap. Last but not least, okay, allow cuts without penalty. Once he's gone, he's gone. Somebody else wants to pick up Joel Embiid, you got him. You eat his contract, you eat everything with him. The minute the 76ers sever that $50 million contract, that $300 million contract, they're free to do whatever they want with their own money. Eliminate all that stuff. There it is, Pete. That's what the NBA needs to do. All right, let's roll because we're short on time. Super 25 in the hoops. This was a good one, Pete. I enjoyed this a lot because this is the fun part of the job for me, the college one. NBA one is easy. It's not that difficult to do. This is really difficult because there's so much that goes into it, and everybody in the NBA is playing each other. Not everybody here is playing each other, and so that matters too. Pete and I talk about cupcakes and cannolis all the time, and it matters. Auburn, Pete, 23-2. They are really, really, 25 games in, number one team. The NCAA came out with their top 16 seeds already, and Auburn, it's almost very, very consistent with what I have here. I got Florida number 2 ahead of Duke because, as you'll hear, one of the notes that I have in my baselines is, according to something I saw online the other day, Duke has not played a ranked team in the top 25 since early December.
Wow.
Wow is right, Pete. So I got them there to 23-3. Congrats to Coach Shire, Cooper Flagg, Malik. They're doing a great job. They got a very, very good team. But I would like to see how they get tested in the tournament and see where they match up. Houston 22-4. Kelvin Sampson over the last 5 to 7 years. Here's 2 names you won't hear all the time as unbelievable coaches, but over the past 5 to 7 years, Kelvin Sampson, Matt Painter, 2 guys that are absolutely doing it right. Alabama had a tough loss the other night, and they got smoked, folks. Absolutely smoked. And they lost to Auburn, too. Tennessee, 21-5. They had an easy early schedule, getting scuffed up a little bit, but I think their guard play is good, but not as good as everybody thinks it is. Michigan State, I love this team. Izzo zone, the Iz zone. They got it going out there in Michigan State, and they're playing Izzo basketball right now. He might be the only guy so far that I've seen with high NIL budget where you're paying guys millions that he's been able to really keep it the way he wants it, the way he wants to run his program. Izzo's unbelievable. St. John's, 22-4. We have them at 8. A lot of people have them lower. They're good. They're really good. They defend because they can't shoot. Patino's alluded to this. They have trouble shooting the basketball. That's a problem. Iowa State, 21-5. They slipped a little bit last week, 2 losses. St. Mary's, this team's very good. Huge matchup at Gonzaga this weekend. So we'll see if they're the real deal. Wisconsin, 21-5. This guy's done a great job with this team. John Tanji should be in consideration for the Wooden Award. Significant consideration. Texas Tech, JT Toppin. I had him last year probably in my top 15 as an NBA prospect. I'd say he's probably right there now, maybe even better. He's been a real big reason Texas Tech is doing well. This is what I alluded to with Adam previously. Dusty May, Michigan, 1 year turnaround. They're in the top of the Big Ten right now. Unbelievable. Great job by this guy. But we saw this at Florida Atlantic. Guy can coach. Clemson, 21-5. They beat Duke last week. Texas A&M, 20-6. I want to love them, Pete, but they keep letting me down. Memphis, once they fell into their league, you knew it was going to be difficult. I like North Texas in that league, but everybody else is going to have a tough time beating Memphis. Marquette, 20-6. I was interested to hear Adam say Shaka Smart's name. Interesting there. He's done a great job at Marquette. It might be a little cold in Wisconsin. Maybe he wants to get a little warmer. Missouri, Dennis Gates, great line. Please don't storm the court. We need the money. That was an unbelievable NIL awakening. And then you have Maryland at 20-6. I got Derek Queen in the top 10. I got Julian Reese in the second round. Louisville, this is the guy that's going to probably get real consideration for Coach of the Year. This program was like a turtleback, completely flipped over on its back and really struggling, and he has done an absolute one-year reclamation project. The guy can flat out coach. Utah State, I love him. I love him. Keep him right there. And let me tell you something, folks. The AP may not like him. Ken Pom may not love him. Torvik may not love him. You don't want to see them in the NCAA tournament opposite you. Trust me, this team's really, really good. Mississippi, there's a name I think when Adam throws out Will Wade, I think you're going to hear Chris Beard's name a little bit at them big-time jobs as well. He's at Mississippi, was at Texas, got jammed up, jumped into Mississippi, kind of like Will Wade, and Will Wade was caught on tape saying a whole lot of stuff that a whole lot of other people said, but then they took him, and, he got lost his job at LSU. If this is the current condition, it's kind of letting guys who got caught for marijuana back in the day out now because it's legal, So I'd say let him out. Pretty good coach. New Mexico, Richard Pitino. Honestly, folks, he should be given consideration. Richard Pitino Jr., him and his dad should be in consideration for National Coach of the Year. That would be unbelievable. And now you got Mississippi State and San Diego State. I like San Diego State, but they got 6 losses now. They got to tune it up, get ready. Now you got weapons of math destruction, Pete. Arizona at 18-8. Ken Pom has them 10th. Are you kidding me? And I like Arizona, but 10th with 8 losses? Purdue, 8 losses. Love Matt Painter. Love Purdue. They can't be 12th. St. John's, why are they 17th at 22-4? I don't get it. Illinois, 17-10, 21 at Ken Pom. How? With 10 losses. Are you in anybody's top 25? Ohio State, 15-11. I wonder if they are really considering what they did with Coach Diebler there in that panic moment of theirs. The hyperspace, here it is, Duke, 12-4 was the last time they played a ranked team. Ooh. December 4th, 24. All right, Pete, we're in a mad dash here. How much time do I got, Pete?
You got about 4 minutes.
Okay, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. What has happened to Kansas's program? They got absolutely taken apart by the BYU Mormons up there. The oath of vengeance was taken out on the Jayhawks, 91-57. I can tell you, folks, there hasn't been a whole lot of those margins of defeat like that in the Self era. Here we go. In the post-Hunter D, we got, since they got to the NIL, all the other stuff. Kansas, 40-19, 18-14. Now, before that, Bill Self, 580-131, 263-68. Right now, they're 18-14 in the league since they started going on this stuff. Okay? It has impact on the players. The motivation of the players has impact on the coaching and coachability. It's having impact on fan interest, impact on the integrity of the game, impact on bagmen. It eliminated the bagman. And it also, there were dudes that were NIL long before the NIL.
Yep.
Now they're getting caught up with. All right. Portal potty updates, Pete, just to keep everybody loaded. As the portal potty begins to load in the spring, as they open the portal to it, now you're going to see, here you go, folks. In the top 10, freshman starter minutes. Auburn, 1 player. Florida, 0 players. Duke, 3 freshmen. They'll all be gone. Alabama, 1 freshman. Houston, 0. Tennessee, 0. Texas A&M, 0. Iowa State, 0. Texas Tech, 1. St. John's, 0. Pitino alluded to it. He said, we're not recruiting high school players. Yep. We're cleaning them out because we lose this player, and this player, and I can't replace them with a high school player. ACC, your mama don't dance and your daddy don't rock and roll. Is the ACC going to dance this year, Pete? I don't know, man. I got 11 teams, 11, virtually eliminated by the 15th of February. The North Carolina Tar Heels, I'm sorry, folks, I love you, but you're not going dancing. You're going to the NIT. 5 have locked bids. 5. Compare that to the SEC, which I think has 10 locked, and the Big Ten, which I think has 9 locked right now. That's huge. That's a big drop-off. Okay? There's 2 fence sitters, Pitt and Stanford, and I don't think either one of them has a very, very strong at-large resume. But this is where you're going to find out. You watch some of these tournaments, you might see some stuff that makes you go, because they needed the money. They need the money. They'll be able to do just about everything to get that. ACC climbing, R.J. Davis out of New York. He climbs up on the list in the top 4 of ACC all-time scorers. Here's what I wanted our fans to note about this. None of these guys was a good pro. None of these guys was a good pro. Tyler Hansborough, 2,872 points. Unbelievable. Psycho T wasn't a great pro. J.J. Redick, 2,769. Of on the list, maybe he had the best pro career. Not a great pro. Dickie Hemrick, 2,587 from Wake Forest. Don't even know if he played in the pros. And R.J. Davis, 2,560. I don't think we'd have him on our draft board, Pete. R.J. Davis right now. Very accomplished player, but I just don't know. Here's my last thought that I'm going to leave with these schools. Are you really counting student fees as revenue? You just hung an $80 semester fee on your students. Are you really counting that as revenue? Have you really sunk to that depth of where we're at? I'll keep my baselines for next week. We'll keep everything else we got for next week. We went 30 minutes with Adam because he was absolutely a great guest. I think this is show 93, Pete.
I believe you're right.
We're closing in on 100. People, thank you for everything that you do for us. Thank you for tuning in to In the Zone. We got a big weekend ahead of us. Hope we'll see you next week, and we'll catch you in the zone, baby.